Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the City of Alameda Mayor's Town Hall. I'm Sarah Henry, the city's Public Information Officer. Joining us today to talk about traffic safety and our current and future traffic calming projects is Lisa Foster, Transportation Planner, Danya Amiri, Transportation Engineer, Gail Payne, Senior Transportation Coordinator, Denise Trepanier, Bike Walk Alameda Board Member, Rochelle Wheeler, Senior Transportation Coordinator. Please note that all participants have been muted. To submit a question for the mayor or for any of our speakers, please use the chat feature. All of our town halls are recorded and are available on the city's website and on our YouTube channel. I'd now like to turn today's town hall over to Mayor Marilyn Ezzy Ashcraft.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today. We're so excited to hear from you. I also want to just note that Alameda's Planning, Building, and Transportation Director, Andrew Thomas, is listening in. These are all projects that are near and dear to his heart and under his general direction. But just for a little background, I mean, we've been working on making life and traveling safer for bicyclists and pedestrians in Alameda for a long time. But I'm happy to let you all know that we now have friends in the White House or in Washington, D.C. Just 2 weeks ago, I was attending the virtual U.S. Conference of Mayors 2021 winter meetings, and we had the distinct pleasure to hear from, well, he was the Secretary Designate. He has since been confirmed as our new Department of Transportation Secretary, former mayor from the city of South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg. And it was just music to my ears to hear him talk about Vision Zero, that this is a national concern and a national initiative. He talked about the fact that bicyclists and pedestrians, that's transportation too. We have to make it safer for these people to get around. I mean, when was the last time you heard a U.S. Secretary of the Department of Transportation say road diet? And he did all of those things and more. He's amazing. He's brilliant. We're going to look to the federal government for some funding for some important projects involving bikes and pedestrians, ... But right here in Alameda, we are doing a lot of things, a lot of projects underway. You might wonder about them. You might have questions. That's all the positive news. On the not so positive side of things, you may have seen in social media, we continue to have our challenges creating safe spaces for bicyclists and pedestrians to just cross the street. As recently as last night, we had a pedestrian, I believe, crossing Santa Clara Broadway, struck by a car, a pedestrian, a teenager, earlier this week trying to cross Shoreline Drive. And there have been too many. And so we cannot overemphasize the importance of doing this, but we are just blessed by wonderful, dedicated, energetic staff in Alameda who are helping us reach these important goals. So I want to just turn them over to all of you to take it away and tell us what's happening, and then we will certainly leave time in this presentation for your questions to be answered. And Sarah will tell you later that and you probably know, just type in the chat box. But again, thank you all for joining us for this important topic. So with that, I am going to introduce and turn the floor over to you, Lisa Foster, Transportation Planner from the city's Planning, Building, and Transportation Department. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to thank you for choosing this topic for your town hall today. You know, as a city and a society, we've been focusing on other really pressing matters recently, like COVID, but traffic safety is still an important way to save lives, as we know. And with that in mind, last November, the City Council adopted a Vision Zero policy that made safety the highest priority in transportation efforts and set a goal to eliminate traffic deaths and severe injuries. This includes everyone, no matter how you get around at any given time. If you walk, use a mobility device, bike, drive, ride in a motor vehicle, ride a motorcycle, or any combination of those things in any one trip. Vision Zero is an international movement that started 20 years ago in Sweden, where they have since halved their fatal crashes, and has been growing across the world, including dozens of cities in the US. The Vision Zero approach is that traffic deaths are preventable by changes to the system around us. The idea is to create an environment where a person's mistake, because we always know people will make mistakes, does not cause death or severe injury. One of the main ways we know to address this is by reducing speeds, which saves lives. In Alameda, we're set up a lot better than a lot of other cities because most of our streets already have 25-mile-per-hour speed limits. But of course, some of our streets were originally designed to encourage higher speeds, and we are working to create streets where driving the speed limit feels natural and easy. Vision Zero is multidisciplinary and data-driven, focusing on the most dangerous streets and behaviors according to where and what is hurting people. So with that in mind, one of the first things we did after the policy passed was to work with our consultants to delve into an analysis of 2009 to 2018 crash data. And we found that each year, an average of 2 people die and 221 people suffer an injury from traffic collisions in Alameda, sadly. The top dangerous behaviors associated with severe and fatal crashes specifically, and I want you to kind of imagine this as I say them because they are intuitive, are failure to yield to a pedestrian and unsafe speeds. We also developed high injury corridor maps to help us prioritize investments. And my colleague Rochelle is going to share this. What you're looking at here is our all modes high injury corridor map. So you see the ones that are red, orange, or yellow. Those corridors are where we see the most injury crashes and the most severe injury crashes. The red are tier 1, so those are the most dangerous, followed by orange and then yellow. And then the circles are our high injury intersections. You can see, Park Street, Webster Street, Lincoln, parts of Central are some of our high injury corridors. This is on, if you go to our Vision Zero webpage, you can get to our crash analysis, which has this map and lots of other really good information that I encourage you to seek out. And so that was our high level crash analysis. But behind every piece of data is a person. And so in 2020, which we just wrapped up, we had 4 people who tragically lost their lives in traffic crashes. Each crash was unique, and we can't say whether that increase in number was a trend yet, because thankfully our numbers are low enough that we can't identify a trend in 1 year only. But I wanted to give 2 examples just to make it hit home what we're talking about when we talk about a traffic fatality. Both of these are pre-COVID at the beginning of 2020, so it's kind of hard to remember. But the first one was a young woman standing on the sidewalk on Ralph Appisato at Coral Sea, and she was waiting for the light to turn green to cross the street. She was struck by a very intoxicated driver and killed. And then not too long after that, we had a person crossing Ensignal at Walnut. She was in the middle of the crosswalk on a green when a suspected distracted driver ran a red light and struck her and killed her also. And after each of these crashes, city staff held post-collision site visits where we went to the place as a group, involving Caltrans too when relevant, and talked about what happened and talked about what we could do to change to possibly make something like this less likely to happen in the future. And we started each of those with a moment of silence to acknowledge, the person who had passed and to remember why we do this work. And then thinking into the future, we've been working on a Vision Zero action plan as required by Alameda's Vision Zero policy. The Vision Zero action plan will include measurable actions to increase street safety with the goal of eliminating traffic fatalities like those and severe injuries. We're guided by a Vision Zero task force, including members from the community and staff from both regional agencies and the city. And at our next meeting, we are planning to have members of the Committee on Police Reform and Racial Justice join us to discuss the role of traffic enforcement in Vision Zero, which has been in our mind. And we hope to release a draft plan in the spring for engagement with the public to see what you think. And I put the email address for Vision Zero in the chat. And if you're not already on our Vision Zero mailing list, then please send me an email and I will add you. I did just send out a Vision Zero mailing, so if you didn't get one in the last couple of days, then you're not on the list. And I look forward to your continued engagement with that effort looking forward. But right now, I'm going to pass along to some of my colleagues who are working on traffic safety projects right here and right now. And first to Danya Amiri, the city's traffic engineer.
And thank you so much for your presentation, Lisa. And I was going to ask you, I think part of your task force involves APD, the Alameda Police Department, is that correct?
Yes.
And including when you go out to a crash site to do the analysis.
Oh yes, they're very important for the post-collision site visits because it is APD that has the specifics on what exactly happened. And then they are, yes, have been involved with our task force and our implementation team from the beginning.
Thank you so much. And yes, it is a pleasure to welcome Danya Amiri, traffic engineer, transportation engineer, I should say, but she's done a lot of great things already in the short time she's been here. I'm trying to remember how many, it's not that long, but anyway, we are excited to hear from her. So Danya, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and the rest of the community. And Rochelle, do you mind bringing the high injury network map back up? I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, and thanks for sharing this map. So I wanted to quickly go over how Public Works is taking our Vision Zero policy and turning it into projects that we could actually deliver to the community. And then, as Lisa mentioned, Vision Zero is a very data-driven program. So we want to use facts in deciding how to prioritize our projects. This high injury network map was used in our determination of where to start our very first project, which is our daylighting project. We do have a city website that explains our daylighting philosophy and what daylighting is. It's basically painting the curbs of intersections red to push back vehicles and open up visibility at the intersection for all modes of traffic. This benefits our pedestrians, bicyclists, auto, and other users of the road. We have started with Grand Street as being the very first corridor. You see that it's already marked in red. Grand Street, the notification letters went out to the community. We mentioned in our notification letters all the parking spaces that will be removed as part of this safety effort. And it's actually completed. So if you drive Grand Street right now, Grand Street has been daylighted as it was our very first corridor of our very first Vision Zero project. We're very excited about that. And the next red marks on this map you'll notice is Main Street, definitely Webster, Park Street, and Lincoln. And that is basically our next set of corridors. Because Webster and Park Street went through the COVID response, road diet and parklet design, we have sort of covered a little bit of the intersection safety through those projects. And so we are planning on moving to Main Street and Central Avenue as our second set of two corridors that we will be daylighting. And we will still and then followed by Lincoln. So Park Street and Webster Street will be also daylighted fully like we did Grand Street, but we're trying to maximize our efforts and try to increase visibility as much as we can quickly throughout the city. The next project that we are going to work on, and Gail, I'm sorry, Rochelle, you could turn off the visual if you'd like or leave it on. The next priority project as part of our Vision Zero is looking at our safe routes to school assessments and increasing safety around our schools. We have about 7 safe routes to school assessments that were provided to us by the ACTC, and the city has now evaluated those school assessments and have prepared work orders. So the next rollout or the very next project in Vision Zero is safety for schools. I know we're not sharing today, but I have a list of the schools. If I may just go over the list, if that's okay with you. We have Lum Elementary, Wood Middle School, Academy of Alameda, NIA Community Learning Center, Franklin School, Love School, and I'm missing Maya Lynn Elementary, as well as Edison Elementary School. Those are the schools that will be receiving some safety improvements. Luckily, we had ACTC help us through their Safe Routes to School, select these schools and have prepared an, sorry, I thought I was getting muted. Following our safe routes to school recommendations, we will be implementing striping, crosswalk improvements, daylighting, high visibility crosswalks around the 7 schools that I just noted. It does not mean the rest of our schools in Alameda will not be looked at, but those are the first batch. And in addition, I wanted to note that these are just the 2 high projects, but through traffic signal timing and traffic signal operations and other projects, I intend on working with our Vision Zero team to bring more safety to our community and make sure they're aligned to our Vision Zero policy. So it's data driven. I know speeding, Lisa just shared with you guys as being one of the top reasons why collisions occur. So we are looking for measures for traffic calming. We'd like to look at our speed survey, as well as look at how we can improve our signal timing and at all of our intersections to bring safety to all of our users. So there's a lot planned for our city, and we look forward to bringing it all to you guys.
Thank you so much, Danya. That was great information. And so with that, I would like to turn the floor over to Gail Payne, Senior Transportation Coordinator with our Planning, Building, and Transportation Department. So she's going to share some good information with you. Welcome, Gail. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just to follow up on what Danya was saying, is just to let you know, yes, we do know that Lum School is no longer a school. However, there are school kids crossing by there to go to Wood School. So that's why it's still a high priority, and that's why we're focusing on it. Another 2 projects I want to talk about. One is in that area is Otis Drive, which is under construction, and then Clement Avenue. And I'm going to bring up some slides that show what's going on. We are in construction. This is Otis and Grand. And so I just want to have us all step back and remember that this is a major construction site, and that there are red cones, there are construction workers. So just if we could just all remember to drive extra safely and walk extra safely and bicycle extra safely in this area. And it is not done yet. And so what you're seeing right now are these raised islands that are, we call this a protected intersection. It's Alameda's first protected intersection. And big picture, again, let's step back. Why did we focus here? And Lisa's great map shows that Otis Drive here is one of our high injury corridors. So we want to do a data-driven process. And so we're looking to really fix those first. And this project, this whole corridor project, is known as a road diet. According to Federal Highway Administration, road diets have the potential to reduce collisions by up to 47%. Road diets mean it goes from 4 lanes to 2 lanes in each direction with a center turn lane. So if you look to the left at Rosewood Way, instead of having those people going westbound to turn left onto Rosewood Way and be in the fast lane while they're turning left, they will be able to get out of the way and wait until it's safe to turn left onto Rosewood Way. That is why it's so much safer. There's a lot of driveways along this bit. And so just when people need to get into their driveways or out of their driveways, they can use this center turn lane to make it safer to do it. Again, we see federal research shows road diets have a collision reduction potential of up to 47%. And so I think that's and we are under construction. We just had the contractors finish up some of the concrete work. Thanks to the drought, it is working to our favor because within the next 1 to 2 weeks, they will be striping and signing. And so that's when you're going to see even more of these safety improvements there. And so right now for people bicycling, it's a little unclear. That's why we have red cones everywhere. So again, we need everyone to be extra safe right now. So that is Otis Drive. And then another key corridor is Clement Avenue here, which is number 8. It looks like on this map, Clement Avenue is part of a larger project called the Cross Alameda Trail. And the beauty of this project is that we're trying to get people to be able to have a bicycle freeway to get to regional transportation hubs. Regional transit, we have in the ferry terminals, we have 2 now in the west end. Alameda Point Seaplane Lagoon Ferry Terminal will open soon. And then we still have Main Street. So that's in the west end. Then people can eventually bicycle beyond the Miller-Sweeney Bridge using Fruitvale Avenue. They're going to be enhancing that bikeway all the way to the BART station there, the Fruitvale BART station. And so we've made a lot of progress. It's been a lot of work. It's involved a lot of different people. And that's all the green is the progress. And now we're working on more the east end. And Clement Avenue, we're focusing on NEPA environmental clearance. We're expected to have that finished in the summer. Then we can start on getting beyond the 35% drawing design that we have to 100% drawing, and then go to construction next year. And so that's that project. We are having, just while I'm here, let me just tell you some, just Del Monte, they're making progress. It's number 5 here. Pennzoil is making progress with cleanup. That's number 7. And then the city has made progress. Congratulations, Rochelle and Mayor Ezzy Ashcraft, we now have purchased the Union Pacific right-of-way. And so we do own it as a city. So that's my update for these projects. And I will pass it to, it seems like I'll pass it to Rochelle, I think.
Or is it, I had Denise Trapani from Bike Walk Alameda.
Yes,
but
my apologies.
Is that correct in the lineup?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Gail, for updating us on those current and in the near future projects. So we have a wonderful bicycle pedestrian advocacy group in Alameda that goes back a long time, and started out, I think, as Bike Alameda, but then merged with another group that was pedestrian oriented. And we have the current president, Denise Trapani, who is joining us today. So we would love to hear your perspective, Denise. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Mayor and staff, for allowing me to speak today on behalf of Bike Walk Alameda. I don't only want to thank you for letting me speak today, but I also want to thank you for all of the great work that you've been doing recently to make Alameda a better place a much safer place to walk and bike. We've been around, we just had our 20-year anniversary last year. So we were hoping to have a big party or celebration, but we'll do that when we're all able to get together again. Oh, thank you. So there's a couple of things I'm going to put in the chat here for everyone to see. I guess I'll start off with a little commercial. We are the local nonprofit advocacy organization. So if anybody wants to join and support our efforts or just see what it is that we do, I'm going to put our website in the chat, and please feel free to go there and check out what we do. We also have a Facebook group that's pretty active, which is where you can find out a lot of information about some of the initiatives we're working on. we have a really solid working relationship with staff, and I'm very, very grateful for that. One of the things that I really wanted to highlight today is how forward-thinking our staff has been. There's a lot of advocacy organizations that have to have conversations or difficult conversations with their staff about whether or not certain safety projects should be done. We don't have to have those conversations in Alameda. I think we're all aligned that they should be done. Really, the question is, how do we do it? How do we fund it? Where do we get the resources to make it happen? So very grateful that we can move on to that sort of those tactical implementation issues, as opposed to having some of those more heated conversations about whether or not we should do these safety projects. One of the things that has made that happen is that we have alignment across a lot of the plans and initiatives in Alameda. So whether it's our climate action plan, our active transportation plan, our general plan, we're all very much, all these plans are very much in alignment that our goals are safety first, climate second, and those are issues that we have to address. And fortunately, biking and walking really hit the sweet spot on both of those. So if you're making things good for bikes and peds, really you're helping to make the street safer for everybody. And you're helping to address our climate issues. We're a very low-lying island, and we have a lot to lose with climate change. And so it's great that Alameda's being so forward-thinking in a lot of what they're doing. So while staff is giving a lot of great detailed information on specific projects that are going on within the city of Alameda, the other thing I just wanted to mention and also thank you for is the support that we're getting for a larger regional project, which is our West End Bicycle and Pedestrian Bridge. We had some huge yay! We had some really big milestones in the last month on this project. The first one being that Rochelle and the mayor, through your advocacy efforts and the relationships you've built with the Coast Guard, were able to secure approval from the Coast Guard to continue studying this bridge, which is huge. Basically, we had come up with, or ACTC had come up with a design, kind of a rough design for the bridge, gave that to the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard said, yeah, keep working on it, keep going ahead. So that's huge. And then the second big thing that happened within the last month is or I should say, Rochelle and the mayor have secured funding from ACTC to do the next really big phase of the project, which is the project study report. And coming out of the project study report, we'll have a good idea of what this bridge will look like, where it's going to land, how it's going to work, who's going to own it, who's going to build it. So some really critical questions to get answered around the bridge. And then at the end of this phase, we'll finally have something to talk about and point to and say, this is what we're striving for. So really, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank staff. I think we're doing really progressive things. A lot of what we're doing may seem very new and different for Alameda. We're not used to doing things differently here, but these are technologies, and these things have been studied throughout the US and throughout Europe for a really, really long time. There's a lot of proven data around what we're doing. And so I just want everyone to feel comfortable that there's a lot of science behind this. And even though it might be new stuff for Alameda when we talk about protected intersections or we talk about roundabouts, these really are proven technologies to meet our goals of safety and climate mitigation. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise, and thank you to you and Bike Walk Alameda for being such valuable partners on all these great things we're working on accomplishing. We should probably give Andrew Thomas some credit there too. He's had a few things to do.
Sorry, his camera wasn't on.
Rochelle Wheeler is wonderful. It's been, we've had fun just partnering together on some of the communications, but I am in awe of the consultants. We've got a great consultant, Rodney Pimentel. He's a bridge engineer. I struggle sometimes to keep up with understanding everything he says, but when I listen to him communicate with the Coast Guard engineers, they speak the same language. He's actually an Alameda resident, but we've been able to accomplish a lot. And one thing you're talking about, Denise, that these aren't new concepts. Maybe some things are new to Alameda, but when DOT Secretary Buttigieg spoke to the U.S. Conference of Mayors, he talked about Amsterdam and how, if you visited Amsterdam, it's a totally bicycle city, but it wasn't always that way. And they certainly went through their growing pains decades ago. So we can learn from that. We don't have to invent the bicycle wheel. But anyway, so with that, I want to turn the floor over to someone who is another invaluable partner. This is our Senior Transportation Coordinator, again, from Department of Planning, Building, and Transportation, Rochelle Wheeler. Does she not have a perfect last name for her job? No. She had it before her job, as I understand.
Yes.
Take it away, Rochelle. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon, Madam Mayor and community listening in and watching. Somebody had to surprisingly point out that to me about my name years ago, being a good fit with my profession. So thank you. So I am going to talk today about the slow streets and commercial streets programs that we have in Alameda. I manage both of those programs, and I'm sure you've all seen them. I'm not going to show any photos. They've been in place since last spring and summer. And this really kind of takes that idea of safety, which we've been talking about with Vision Zero, and expands on it to include, safety of protecting ourselves against COVID-19 and our community. And both of these programs provide more space so that we can physically distance from others while living our lives, while exercising, while shopping, while dining. And of course, with the Commercial Streets program, a big goal of that is not just to support our lives, but to support our business community and to be able to enable businesses to keep operating outdoors or at least in a limited way outdoors through this really, really challenging time. So overall, I would say we've seen success with both of these programs. We've done some surveys, we've heard from business communities, and we see that I would say these programs are overall supported by our community. The council has extended both of these programs through the end of this October. So we know that they will be in place at least through then. So where are these programs going? The first the thing that's coming up soonest is we have grant funding right now to make some improvements to expand and fortify both of these programs so that they will remain strong through October. We put up a lot of temporary devices that, do wear and tear much more quickly than something permanent like concrete. So these are all both pilot programs. And so we want to kind of strengthen those by doing some replacement of devices or infilling with additional bollards and things like that. And those efforts are going to be done by the end of March because we have to spend the money by the end of March for this grant. And then a little bit further ahead, we are planning to evaluate more in depth each of these programs in the early summer, and then bringing recommendations back to council by September so that we'll kind of know what we're doing next. But for each of these programs, just to kind of let you know where we're going. So with the commercial streets, what we've seen, and I see some members of our community along Park Street, what we've seen is that the business districts overall really are supporting the addition of parklets and the lane reductions from 4 to 2 lanes. And we're really seeing that we think that, that is probably going to remain in place. There's not a big push to go back to having 4 lanes on those streets. So, we'll be looking into that in more depth, but that's what we're hearing right now from the business districts on Park and Webster. And then on our slow streets, most of those streets are recommended for kind of more traffic calm streets or bike boulevards in our draft active transportation plan recommendations. And so with our grant funds, we are going to kind of fortify those programs a little bit more and test some new traffic calming treatments along them too. We're planning to do some kind of a couple of quick build traffic circles and some other measures to kind of with the goal of moving those streets towards more traffic calmed neighborhood streets and testing that out really. And these are being done in like what are called quick build ways. so that, we can modify them, we can move them around easily. It's a way to do, to test out new things, new for the community. As we've been saying, traffic circles have been around for decades, but to test them in these environments. So that's what's happening with those two programs. And just to, it's such a pleasure to work with all of my colleagues that you've heard from today, and our bike walk advocacy members, and our mayor and our council. We have a really great team now across all of our departments. We're doing a lot of interdepartmental coordination, plus obviously reaching out to others like the school district. So we can, as you can see, we're all really committed to safety and making our streets safer, and really prioritizing that in Alameda. So thank you, and I'll pass it back to the mayor.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. That's really exciting to hear about this. I love traffic circles. I do have a question for you on that. So when you say quick build, this is a little new to me. How do we make sure that people who use that particular intersection will know about it, know this change? Because, I imagine we don't want to catch people by surprise. What would you, how do you address that?
Yeah, I think outreach is the biggest thing, like having, we can have some A-frames out there with information on them, and also doing some social media and email blasts and things like that to let people know that, this is temporary, and how to give feedback, and that something has changed.
Oh, that sounds great. And, when I think about slow streets, well, I have to tell everybody, this morning I was listening to Mayor London Breed from San Francisco and Mayor Libby Schaff, our neighbor next door from Oakland, doing their mayor's 2021 economic forecast. It was sponsored by the San Francisco Business Times. But when Mayor Schaff was talking, she mentioned the Slow Streets program, which probably started in Oakland a little bit before we did. But she said, we love them. We're not going back. Just, when the pandemic is over, we look forward to the pandemic being over. Wear your mask, get your vaccine, please. But even when it's over, we want to keep our slow streets. And it's one of the things I think about every evening when my husband and I almost every evening, we try to go out for a walk, and we see lots of other people out there walking. We want people to keep walking and biking and doing these really healthy things, get outside, but we have to support their efforts to do that. So, good work. And as those of you who are watching, probably, especially if you're a bicyclist or pedestrian, you recognize the background for Rochelle there. Yay! And all of us on the panel, this was not quite a year ago, but it was like, I want to say late February, maybe early March, we did the grand opening. It was so much fun, so positive, and then boom, we just shut everything down with COVID-19. Now, luckily, people are still using it. We get rave reviews. I love it. And now you can ride all the way out and see more development happening at Alameda Point. So use the Cross Alameda Trail. Thank you to all our panelists. And now I know, I believe that Sarah Henry has some questions that have been coming in, and you all can just decide who wants to tackle a particular question. Sarah, what have you got for us?
Great. So first question, I think for Rochelle or maybe for Danya, when will the lane reduction happen from Ensignal to San Jose Avenue?
I will say that will happen by March 31st.
It's called use it or lose it. Those are the funds. Yeah. Well, that's pretty quick. Okay.
The easy answer. Okay. Next one. Mayor, I think this would be for you. What is the status of traffic enforcement by APD?
Oh, the status of traffic enforcement. Well, certainly, speeding when there's an officer there to catch them. We're doing those kinds of things. The problem is officers can't be everywhere at once. Sometimes it feels a little like whack-a-mole. We'll have an accident happen, and then we'll pay attention to maybe doing some patrols to catch people speeding in this particular areas. But if you followed some of our conversations, at any one given shift, and there are 3 shifts around the clock in Alameda, there are not always enough patrol officers around to do all the things we would like to do. But I think it was Lisa Foster who mentioned that the reimagining the police subcommittees, that effort will be meeting to talk about things like traffic enforcement. So I look forward to those conversations and seeing how we can use our police department most effectively to keep us all safe. And I know, gosh, again, one of the last public forums I think we had before we all shut down for COVID was at, I think it was at Love School in the multi-purpose room, and everybody here on the screen was there presenting, and we had, I want to say it was Officer Deraspini is one of the officers working with you, and lots of good information and concerns. Lisa Foster, you're probably a little more up to the minute on what APD is doing with traffic enforcement with regard to bicycle pedestrian safety. You want to jump in?
Sure. At the very beginning of COVID, they did slow down significantly on traffic enforcement, but they are trying to get back to normal now. And they did train up a new traffic enforcement officer. But they are, reporting that they're understaffed right now. And some of those traffic enforcement officers are being pulled onto patrol. So they aren't as active as they would like to be.
Great. Thanks, Lisa.
Yep. Okay, so next question. This person says that they love the daylighting, but that they worry that paint is not enough. They said that they still see people parking in the red zones. And is there a way to keep cars from parking there better than how we're doing it now?
Well, who would like to tackle that?
Maybe
I could,
or Gail?
Sure. Yes. So thank you for the question, and thanks for appreciating the daylighting. And so when we decided to proceed with daylighting as our first Vision Zero project, it was something that was very achievable within the means and within funding that we had. So definitely there's more measures out there to prohibit, or like we just mentioned about enforcement, additional signage, more education. We're going through a little learning curve right now. Believe it or not, we even had people blocking the fire station driveway on Park Street. So you'd be surprised, some people are just used to thinking maybe a certain driveway is closed and that they can continue to park. We did additional pavement marking, additional signage, but that's for the fire station, which is such an essential building for the city. So our plans are to continue to look for better ways. We do have a lot of goals. We think daylighting is very achievable and quick. That's why we started with just the paint and additional signage. But we definitely want to continue with other measures.
Gail, did you? Sorry, Mayor. I saw Gail also raising her.
Yes, when we are fortunate enough to have grant monies, then we can do a more like a phase 2 approach that's with these floating concrete islands. And it looks like that because Clement Avenue, we have federal funding, so we will be able to install those at intersections so that effectively blocks people from parking there. And so it's in addition to the red curb.
Thanks, Gail. I'm still shaking my head about someone parking in the fire station's driveway. I want to think that it was someone from out of town, possibly a Martian who wasn't, I don't know. But anyway, next question, Sarah.
Yes. Next is for Gail about Otis, and I'm going to read, there were a couple of comments that came in, so I'm just going to read them all at once for you, Gail. The first one was that they said that the best that can be done for bicyclists is to make sure that the space between the sidewalk and the biscuits has smooth asphalt with no rough edges. This has been a problem with new asphalt in the past. And they said that the project in general creates crowding for bikes and pedestrians between the biscuits. They said that they think that you should avoid this and behave like like a car for the purpose of crossing or turning at this intersection. The placement of the biscuits is odd, with pedestrians waiting to the side of the crosswalk. And finally, they said that it's important that the concerns of people who are subject to this new improvement are heard. There's a tendency to ignore these voices, labeling them as naysayers. They're not opposed to safety, but they believe that there are simpler solutions that could be equally effective.
Before whoever answers it, what's a biscuit? Did I miss something?
That was in Gail's drawing. It's that. Gail, do you want to, are you there?
Did you label it biscuit, Gail?
You did not label it biscuit.
I love that drawing, the aerial of Otis and Grand.
It is lunchtime, so.
It is, and I haven't had lunch.
Biscuits.
I haven't had lunch yet, so I'm even hungry. Okay, find the hidden biscuits. What are the biscuits? Oh, that's a biscuit. More like a baguette,
We
perhaps,
call them
but-
floating islands, or they're concrete
Got it.
raised islands. And it's true, especially if you're an experienced bicyclist, it is an adjustment, and this is our first one. And so we do ask for your patience, and we definitely want input, because we want to see how we should do this in the future at other intersections or not. So federal and international research does show this is safer, and because people who are bicycling are expected to say, if you see my cursor, be tracked into this space between the raised island and the sidewalk. And so it does, because it's a smaller space, force the person bicycling to slow down. The ones coming southbound towards the beach are actually going a little bit downhill. So the propensity is to speed up a little bit there. So it does force you, and then to jog a little bit there, because there's another raised island there. And so, yes, and we do even want the experienced bicyclists to be slowing down. And it is an adjustment, because you have a little bit more liberty and freedom right now as it stands. And so we do ask that you just have some patience and give it a little bit of time. We usually say it takes like 3 to 6 months to make this type of adjustment, and then to let us know like just how you feel. And I think that's my biggest reaction to, now I've lost track of what the questions were. Sorry, Sarah.
No, that's great. No, I think that gets to them. And a follow-up question, somebody asked specifically about how the floating islands will affect street cleaning.
Yes, we had definitely some significant concerns about street sweeping. And so we'll have to do manual street sweeping between the raised islands and the curb there. So it does create a bit of a conundrum just in between that space.
And this is Rochelle. I'll just add that other cities like Oakland and San Francisco are now buying smaller street sweepers so that they can keep their protected bike lanes clean. And we already over a year ago started that conversation with Public Works to think about when we have that, when we have that kind of critical mass of protected bikeways here in Alameda, that we need to be planning ahead to purchase one of those.
Great. I'll just add.
I'm learning a lot today.
So somebody posted a comment. They wanted to say, as a bicyclist, I love the concept of protected intersections and hope to see more. Rochelle, a person asked how residents can show their support for continuing the slow streets. What can they do? How do they let you know?
Yeah, that's a great program. So we're going to be doing a wave of outreach kind of in the late spring, early summer, or like I said, to more in-depth evaluate the Slow Streets program. And so we have a survey right now on the webpage, which I put a link in the chat to the Slow Streets webpage, but we will put out a new survey kind of now that the program will have been in place. I mean, a lot of people, we put up that survey originally before we even installed the Slow Streets, and people started saying how they liked them or not. So we want to kind of start a fresh survey where they've actually been in place for a while and hear from everybody, including residents on those streets, what they think of them. So look for that, and we'll communicate to the public via the webpage and through social media.
And then as a follow-up to that, somebody talked specifically about when in-person school resumes, will you be looking at the slow streets and the impact to kids going back to school?
Yes, particularly on Versailles. Yeah, we're looking at that next to Edison, and yeah, because we know that could be happening in a month, as soon as a month. So yeah, we are starting to look at that. Yeah.
Great. A question, I'm not sure for who, anybody can take it. Are road diets a problem for buses? And if so, how is that being addressed?
Oh, Gail, Lisa, who wants, any of you are capable of answering that. Who wants to go? Does your hand up, Gail?
Yes, so we did work with AC Transit, and we had the consultant engineers work with them to make sure that intersection Grand Otis works for AC Transit, because they do, and I can share it again, have a bus service that runs and actually goes, say, northbound and makes a left turn going westbound. So it does absolutely work for them, and we had to relocate the bus stop further west, where my cursor is here, just
I'm not
because.
sure. Are we seeing Gail's cursor? I'm not.
It's like a cross. It's very
Okay.
faint. I
All
can
right.
see it. It's very faint.
Oh, I
for
think
you.
I see
You
it.
see it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Going down Otis Drive.
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, in this case, it really depends on a case-by-case basis, depending on how big the intersection is. We have the luxury at Grand Otis. It's an extra big intersection, so the buses can absolutely make that left turn, and then going the other direction when they're traveling eastbound and then traveling southbound, we designed it so they could. If you look at the I guess these little triangular islands, this is a truck apron, which is also known as a buses can use them, bigger vehicles, and can get up there if needed. And then also we have the left turning, left turn lane back a bit to allow for a little bit more space for buses, drivers to make that turn.
I just noticed you said apron, and then there's biscuits, and then there's diet. And I'm not saying anything.
And it's lunchtime.
And it's lunchtime.
Making me hungry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question.
Well,
that I
and
have.
just
Go
as
ahead.
far as the public transportation, the other thing is, before we, or while we were, the department was making the plans for both Park Street and Webster Street to do the outdoor dining spaces and parklets and whatnot, they were in close communication with AC Transit that just said, look, this is an essential workhorse route for a couple of AC Transit lines, at least use those streets. And so luckily everyone was able to coexist. And I don't even think, did we have to move any bus stops? Danya, do you want to take that one?
Sure, yes, I could add to that, Mayor. So for Park Street and Webster Street, we designed the corridors, AC Transit reviewed the plans, but what I'm currently working on, and I didn't have a chance to update earlier, is revisiting both of those two corridors to implement, basically it's our first ever communication project in Alameda. So this is getting the traffic signals a little bit modernized. And what this will do is give the intersections the ability to talk to each other. So since we have it's a busy corridor, we're not doing anything underground, we are using radios on each intersection, like the poles along the corridor, and then to get the intersections to talk to each other. And then we will be able to install communication equipment that will then allow us to use transit priority, TSP, transit signal priority, as well as EVP, emergency vehicle preemption. And so by doing this, we're basically, it's the first of its kind in Alameda. You could call it pilot, but it's definitely my vision for the rest of the city as well, to ensure that our transit and our emergency vehicles are able to move along the corridor when there's the need and demand very efficiently and safely. So this project is pretty, we've installed the radios, we've installed the controllers, we're working on the switch, which is the communication piece. I've partnered with our, with our IT department, our maintenance staff, with some consultants. So hopefully in the next month, you all will be able to see some traffic signal operational improvements along Park and Webster. And transit, AC Transit has been in the conversation, so has our fire department been. They're both very excited because we're basically adding technology that will be used by both using one equipment. So we made sure that we're buying models of things that both AC Transit buses and our fire engines could support. So we're very excited about that, and more to come on that.
The mayor is very excited too. That's so exciting, Tanya. And will this also keep people from just sitting at a red light when there's no cross traffic?
Excellent. Great point. Thank you. Now we will be able to take our detection and basically make it live, like on demand. So when it's off peak hours, as you approach the intersection, you should be detected and given the green light. And at the same time, during peak periods, we are basically able to now coordinate the corridor for our peak periods and, get all the users through the corridor more efficiently and reduce the idle time and greenhouse gases.
So exciting. So many exciting possibilities. Thank you for sharing that. Sarah, did I hear one more question? Do we still have time?
Yeah, I have one.
Yes.
One more question. I'm not sure who this would go to, but why haven't we implemented island-wide street parking permits? Seems like a great way to decrease our addiction to cars while helping people recognize the value of street parking. And this also ties into objections to Article 26.
Okay, that's
Lisa, do you want to take that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Lisa, before you chime in, I'll just say that when you talk about streetwide parking permits, I mean, there is certainly a process to do that, but public streets are public streets. But talk about are you the right person to talk about what we're doing? And we got Gail's got her hand up too. So between the two of you, I know we'll get great information.
I can start just to say that the city in pre-pandemic had really started to take a hard look at our parking policies in general. Some of that honestly has slowed down in the last months, but we do plan to pick it back up. And that would be one thing to consider in the mix. Right now we just have one small parking permit program on Bay Farm that is run in part by the homeowners association. So it would be a new approach for Alameda, certainly worth considering. Gail, did you want to add something?
Yes, and that's just what I wanted to say is that we have a certain way of doing it where it's initiated by each neighborhood. And so absolutely, if enough neighbors in a certain neighborhood want to do it, they can do it. It does cost some money for them, and we need to work with them to initiate it, like was done in Bay Farm Island. And so we are, as a city, looking at parking management. There's a lot of different issues, and thankfully Lisa's an expert at parking management. And there's just with just the Ubers and the Lyfts and the delivery vehicles, there's just a lot going on with parking. So we're definitely in a good position, thanks with Lisa being here, that we can step back and take another look at parking management.
Great information. So Sarah, we wrapped up all of our questions, right?
Yes, all of the questions were answered. That was
we
great.
did very well because it is just like 104. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much to all of you subject matter experts for sharing this really important information with everyone, because I really do want Alamedans to not think of your car, if you have a car, as your first means of transportation. It's so easy to get around our lovely, mostly flat island on your bike. I rode here today on mine, and it's just it's a lovely way to get some fresh air and exercise and see things that you wouldn't see driving in a car. I mean, obviously focusing on the road and everything around you, but still, it's very nice. So we want you to be able to get to and from your destination safely, and I'm really grateful and to all of you for making that possible. So thank you so much for joining our town hall. Our speakers, our guests, Sarah Henry, thank you for making this all possible. And we look forward to seeing you soon on your bike. Be sure to wear your mask anytime you leave the house, including when you're riding your bike. So thank you all. Take care. Stay safe. Bye
Thank
now.
you.
Everybody,
Thank you.
thank you.
It was
Thank
great.
you.